We all think pets are harmless and adorable, right? But what happens when your beloved pet decides you're the meal? From lizards feasting on their owners to tigers showing their true instincts, these shocking stories will make you sick to your stomach. Let's dive right in. Man attacked by a reptile. In 2002, a welfare check by Florida police turned into a scene straight out of a horror movie. They were checking on Ronald Huff, but instead of finding him well, they walked into a nightmare. Huff was dead, his body slumped against the front door, surrounded by his 7 Nile monitor lizards. These weren't ordinary lizards, they were 6 feet long and had started eating him. His face, hands, and even some organs were gone, a terrifying sight that showed just how dangerous these pets could be. Huff's apartment was like a sauna, heated up for the lizards that roamed around freely. This setup was supposed to be their paradise, but it became a death trap for Huff. Neighbors mentioned that one of the lizards had bitten him a couple of weeks before he died, causing a nasty infection. Weak and feverish from the infection, Huff likely collapsed by the front door, trying to cool down. The story gets even more gruesome from there. When Huff collapsed, he was too weak to get up, and his pets started to see him, not as their owner, but as something to eat. The first responders described a chilling scene. Where his cheeks used to be, you could now see his teeth. It was clear the lizards didn't hold back. Afterward, the lizards had to be dealt with. Some were sent to zoos, but the more aggressive ones were put down. If you thought that was shocking, wait until you hear what happened on a quiet farm in Oregon. Farmer killed by pigs. On a seemingly ordinary morning in rural Oregon, tragedy struck on the farm of 69-year-old Terry Vance Garner. Known for his gentle nature and dedication to his livestock, Garner set out to feed his pigs, animals he had raised and tended to for years. However, he never returned from the pig enclosure, sparking concern and leading to a grim discovery by his family. Hours after he went missing, one of Garner's relatives found him in the pig pen, but the scene was far from ordinary. Parts of Garner's body had been consumed by the very pigs he cared for. The state of his remains indicated that the pigs had become aggressive, a behavior not typically associated with domesticated farm animals, which raised numerous questions about the circumstances surrounding his death. Investigations into Garner's demise revealed that he might have suffered a medical episode, such as a heart attack or a stroke. Unable to call for help or defend himself, he would have been vulnerable, and the pigs may have instinctively scavenged on their incapacitated owner. This behavior, while shocking, is known in pigs under stress or when food is scarce, highlighting a darker aspect of natural animal instincts. If you thought that was shocking, wait until you hear about the dangers lurking in the seemingly safe corners of a suburban home. Cat eats owner. In Albion, Pennsylvania, a deeply troubling situation was discovered in the home of Herbert Walden, a 74-year-old former teacher, and his 94-year-old mother, Jane. After neighbors reported not seeing the elderly mother and son for over a week, authorities were called to check on them. What they found was heart-wrenching. Both Herbert and Jane had passed away in their severely neglected home. The house was in a shocking state. There was no running water, and trash was stacked nearly to the ceiling, creating an extremely unhealthy living environment. The police noted that the house didn't have a working toilet. Instead, buckets were used, and the contents were kept in containers throughout the home. Amid these grim conditions, the authorities had to remove 12 live cats, and also found a dead dog and 4 deceased cats, suggesting severe neglect. The investigation suggested that Herbert likely suffered a heart attack. With no one else to look after her, Jane probably died from dehydration shortly after her son's death. In their desperation for food, the cats started eating what was available, which horrifyingly included Herbert's foot. And the next story is even more gruesome. Fatal attack by pet bear. Kellyanne Walls' passion for exotic animals had always been a big part of her life, particularly her relationship with a black bear named Teddy, whom she had raised from a cub. She kept Teddy in a special enclosure in her Pennsylvania home, believing that her loving care and the bond they shared would mitigate the risks inherent to owning such a powerful animal. In 2009, this assumption proved tragically incorrect. The fatal incident occurred one seemingly normal day while Kellyanne was inside Teddy's cage for a cleaning session, a task she had done countless times. However, this time, disaster struck. As her children and a neighbor looked on, Teddy attacked despite frantic efforts to pull the bear away or distract him. Teddy's overwhelming strength and primal instincts took over. The situation escalated to the point where the neighbor, in a desperate bid to save Kellyanne, shot the bear, but sadly, her injuries were too severe. And if this made your stomach turn, wait till we get deeper into the video. Chimp attack leaves woman disfigured. It started as a routine visit to help a friend, but for Charla Nash, that day in 2009 would change her life forever. Her friend, Sandra Harold, had raised Travis, a 200-pound chimpanzee, as a part of her family in Stamford, Connecticut. Travis was practically a local celebrity, known for riding in cars, wearing clothes, and even appearing in commercials. But beyond all that, he was still a wild animal. When Nash arrived to assist Harold in corralling the escaped chimp, the situation quickly spiraled into horror. Without warning, Travis launched a brutal attack, mauling Nash's face and hands with unrelenting ferocity. The assault left her permanently disfigured, her injuries so severe that emergency responders Villagers initially couldn't recognize her. Nash lost both hands and most of her face, including her nose, lips, and eyelids. As the attack unfolded, Harold desperately tried to stop Travis, even stabbing him with a kitchen knife, but it was no use. Police eventually arrived and shot the chimp after he attempted to attack an officer. If you think that's shocking, wait until you hear the next one. Deadly python attack. In June 2018, Watiba, a 54-year-old woman from the Muna district of southeast Sulawesi, Indonesia, went missing after heading to her vegetable garden late one evening. When she didn't return home, her family and neighbors began searching the next morning. In the garden, they found her sandals, flashlights, and machete, but there was no sign of her. During the search, villagers spotted a huge python nearby. The snake, which was about 23 feet long, had a strangely swollen belly. Fearing the worst, they killed the snake and cut it open. Inside, they found Watiba's body, still fully intact. Authorities believe the python attacked her while she was working in the garden. Pythons kill their prey by wrapping their bodies tightly around it, squeezing until the prey can't breathe, and then swallowing it whole. From the dense jungles of Indonesia to the dangers of wild predators closer to home, the next story will leave you just as unsettled. Wolfdog kills owner. Sandra Pioveson always called her 9 wolfdog hybrids her family. Fiercely loyal to them, she believed her bond with these wild and domestic crossbreeds could overcome their natural instincts. But one summer morning in 2006, that bond was tragically broken. Sandra was found dead inside the enclosure where she kept the wolfdogs. Her daughter discovered her lifeless body after Sandra didn't show up for breakfast. The hybrids had mauled her to death, inflicting severe injuries that caused her to bleed out. Experts say their aggressive behavior may have been triggered by pack dynamics, hierarchical instincts that can make even the most familiar handler appear as a threat. Despite neighbors' concerns and warnings from animal experts about the dangers of keeping wolf dogs, Sandra had devoted years to raising and breeding them. She housed them in a large electrified pen on her Pennsylvania property, confident that her care and love would ensure her safety. Tragically, her belief in that bond proved fatal. Following her death, all 9 wolf dogs were euthanized to ensure the safety of others. Let's move to another case where human trust was shattered by instinct. Tiger attack claims handler's life. Cynthia Lee Gamble, a dedicated animal handler and wildlife documentary editor, spent over a decade raising and training exotic cats, including tigers, cougars, and leopards. As the founder of the Center for Endangered Cats in Danforth Township, Minnesota, Gamble was deeply involved in wildlife education and conservation, often providing animals for educational programs and media productions. On April 6, 2006, Gamble was performing routine maintenance inside a tiger enclosure on her property. A sliding door designed to separate the tigers from the area she was cleaning had been inadvertently left open. This critical mistake allowed Tango, a 500-pound Bengal tiger, to enter the space where she was working. Without warning, the tiger attacked her, causing fatal injuries. Her body was discovered later that day by a friend who came to check on her. An autopsy of Tango revealed that the tiger was severely underweight, weighing only 260 pounds, roughly half the expected weight for an adult tiger of his size. Veterinary examinations reported that the tiger was emaciated and its teeth were worn or possibly trimmed. Experts believe that malnutrition and poor health may have played a role in the tiger's aggression. And if you thought this was crazy, wait till you hear the next one. Venomous pets lead to tragedy. In 2004, Mark Vogel, a 30-year-old from Dortmund, Germany, met a tragic and gruesome end at the hands, or fangs, of his exotic pets. Vogel was passionate about collecting dangerous creatures and transformed his small apartment into a sanctuary for venomous spiders, snakes, and other exotic animals. His collection included over 200 spiders, several snakes, a gecko named Helmut, and even thousands of termites. Neighbors called authorities after noticing a strong odor coming from Vogel's apartment. When the police entered, they were confronted with a nightmare. Vogel's body was draped across his sofa, wrapped in spider webs. Spiders crawled over his corpse, and lizards were found feasting on his decaying flesh. To make matters worse, termites had spread throughout the apartment, leaving a chaotic, infested scene. Investigators believe that Vogel's death was caused by a bite from his black widow spider, Bettina. Black widow venom is 15 times more potent than a rattlesnake's, and the bite likely incapacitated him. Unable to seek help, he died in his apartment. In the days following his death, his pets, left without food, began to scavenge his body. Authorities reported that spiders had nested in his wounds, and pieces of his flesh had been torn away by lizards and carried back to their hiding places. From venomous creatures to wild hybrids, the next story examines what happens when humans fail to respect the boundaries of the animal kingdom. Pack of dogs kills owner. In May 2018, 52-year-old Tracy Garcia from Ardmore, Oklahoma, was attacked and killed by a pack of dogs near her home. The dogs, 7 in total, included 6 Dachshund Terrier mixes and 1 Border Collie mix. All were small to medium-sized, with the heaviest dog weighing about 40 pounds. The attack occurred late in the evening while Garcia was outside her property. Neighbors reported hearing her screams and quickly called emergency services. When first responders arrived, one of the dogs aggressively charged at them, forcing a deputy to shoot it to ensure the safety of the medical team. Despite their efforts, Garcia succumbed to her severe injuries at the scene. The remaining 6 dogs were captured and euthanized with the consent of their owner. A veterinary examination revealed that the dogs had been living in poor conditions, suffering from flea and tick infestations. They were also not spayed or neutered, likely contributing to heightened aggression and a dangerous pack dynamic. From small packs to massive predators, the next case shows the devastating power of sheer size and strength. Chimp attack leaves primate expert injured. The tranquility of a South African wildlife sanctuary turned to chaos when 26-year-old Andrew Oberle made a fateful misstep in 2012. Oberle, a passionate primatologist from the United States, was studying chimpanzee behavior at the Jane Goodall Institute Chimpanzee Eden. While leading a group of visitors, he stepped beyond a designated safety barrier to retrieve a rock, unknowingly entering the chimp's territorial zone. In an instant, 2 male chimpanzees, Nikki and Amadeus, lunged at him. The attack was swift and ferocious. The chimps dragged Oberle over 100 feet, leaving him with devastating injuries, including crushed bones, deep cuts, and the loss of fingers, toes, and part of his scalp. The sheer strength of the animals, nearly 5 times stronger than an average human, left rescuers scrambling to save him. Sanctuary staff managed to drive the chimps away using fire extinguishers and retrieved Oberle, who was barely alive. He was airlifted to a hospital where he underwent multiple surgeries and a lengthy recovery. Despite the horrific injuries, Oberle's determination to recover and continue advocating for wildlife never wavered. If you thought this was intense, the next story would leave you in awe. Texas man killed by pet wolves. In 2014, Bobby Hodge, a 62-year-old wildlife enthusiast from Texas, tragically lost his life in a deadly encounter with his pet wolves. Hodge had spent years raising a small pack of wolves on his property, captivated by their beauty and determined to bridge the gap between humans and these majestic, misunderstood predators. Hodge kept the wolves in a specially built enclosure and maintained daily interaction with them. He believed that through consistent care and bonding could tame the pack. However, even wolves raised in captivity retain their wild instincts, including a strong pack mentality and territorial behavior. On the day of the attack, Hodge entered the enclosure for what he likely considered a routine task, feeding and checking on the animals. Witnesses reported hearing commotion from the property and called emergency services. When authorities arrived, they found Hodge's lifeless body in the enclosure, mauled by the very animals he had cared for. It appeared that the wolves, acting as a pack, had suddenly turned on him, seeing him as a threat, or perhaps asserting dominance. Following the incident, wildlife officials euthanized the wolves to ensure public safety. Investigators noted that while Hodge's intentions may have been noble, the risks of keeping wolves as pets are enormous. These animals, no matter how well cared for, have instincts that cannot be fully suppressed, especially in stressful or unfamiliar situations. If this story makes you uneasy, the next one will make you think twice about another so-called exotic pet. Pet crocodile kills owner during feeding. To most people, feeding a pet means tossing kibble into a bowl. For DZ Tuwo, it meant standing face-to-face with a 1,500-pound predator. In January 2019, DZ, a 44-year-old laboratory manager in Minahasa, North Sulawesi, Indonesia, tragically lost her life to her massive pet crocodile, Mary. Mary, an illegal pet kept at a pearl farm, was an enormous 14.4-foot-long crocodile, known for its aggressive nature. DZ, who regularly fed the crocodile raw meat, had developed a routine of caring for the animal. On the fateful day, she was feeding Mary when she either slipped or was pulled into the enclosure. What followed was a gruesome attack. The next morning, DZ's colleagues made a horrifying discovery. Her mutilated body was floating in the water inside the crocodile's enclosure, with one of her arms missing and significant injuries to her torso. Authorities concluded that the crocodile had partially consumed her, acting on its natural predatory instincts. Mary was later subdued and removed by a team of police, military personnel, and wildlife conservationists. The crocodile was relocated to a wildlife sanctuary, while an investigation revealed that keeping Mary as a pet was both illegal and dangerous. And the next story will shock you even more. Big cat attack ends life. A.J. Merrick, a 37-year-old big cat enthusiast from Illinois, lost his life in 2003 to a Bengal tiger he had raised from a cub. Merrick, known for his deep admiration for tigers, kept the animal on his property in a specially built enclosure. He had cared for the tiger for years, often describing their bond as unbreakable. Yet, even with this experience, a single moment turned fatal. The incident occurred during a routine feeding. Merrick entered the tiger's enclosure as he had done countless times before. Witnesses reported hearing shouting and commotion before the tiger attacked. The 500-pound animal pounced on Merrick with overwhelming force, using its powerful claws and jaws to inflict fatal injuries. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Merrick had died from the attack. Neighbors expressed concerns about the presence of such a large predator in their community, but at the time, local regulations allowed private ownership of exotic animals with minimal oversight. Following the attack, authorities removed the tiger from Merrick's property, and it was later euthanized. Merrick's death shocked his local community and led to heightened awareness of the dangers posed by keeping big cats as private pets. Despite his extensive experience, the sheer strength and unpredictability of the animal proved fatal. This tragedy also spurred discussions about the lack of strict laws governing the ownership of exotic animals in certain states. But if you thought this was all, you're in for a surprise. Cats kill and eat owner. In 2013, 56-year-old Janet Veal, a reclusive woman from Ringwood, Hampshire, England, was discovered under grim circumstances in her home. Concerned neighbors, who hadn't seen her for weeks, contacted authorities. When the police entered the house, they found Veal's partially eaten body in the kitchen, surrounded by her surviving pets, including several cats. An investigator revealed that Veal had likely died of natural causes, possibly linked to her chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which made it difficult for her to breathe. Investigators determined that her death had occurred several weeks prior to her discovery. Tragically, the animals in her home, left without food, resorted to scavenging her remains to survive. Her home was described as cluttered and unsanitary, suggesting that she had been living in isolation for some time. In addition to the live animals, several pets were found dead from starvation, further illustrating the severity of the situation. This disturbing incident shocked the local community and highlighted the dangers of extreme isolation, especially for individuals with health issues and numerous dependent animals. The animals, acting purely on survival instincts, turned to their deceased owner for sustenance. As chilling as this case is, the next story shifts focus to an entirely different type of animal, where the dynamic between human and predator takes a shocking and unexpected turn. Camel gift turns deadly. In August 2007, a tragic incident occurred in Mitchell, Queensland, Australia, involving a 60-year-old woman and her pet camel. The woman, an avid lover of exotic animals, received a 10-month-old male camel as a birthday gift from her family earlier that year. The camel, weighing approximately 330 pounds, had been displaying increasingly erratic behavior, including attempts to straddle other animals on the property, such as the family's pet goat. On the day of the incident, the camel exhibited similar behavior towards its owner. It knocked her to the ground and attempted to straddle her, a behavior interpreted by experts as sexual in nature. Due to the camel's substantial weight and strength, the woman was unable to free herself and was tragically suffocated beneath the animal. Her body was discovered later that day by family members. This incident highlights the unpredictable nature of even young camels, especially when they are not properly trained or handled. Camel expert Chris Hill noted that while young camels are generally not aggressive, they can become dangerous if treated as pets without appropriate discipline. The camel in this case had previously exhibited concerning behavior, such as straddling the family's pet goat, which should have been a warning sign of potential danger, and the next one's even more shocking. Bull attack takes farmer's life. Al Simon, a Minnesota farmer in his 60s, had spent decades around livestock and was no stranger to handling large animals. Among his animals was a bull he had raised from a young age, trusting his experience and familiarity to keep things safe. However, in 2003, a seemingly ordinary interaction with the animal turned fatal. On the day of the incident, Simon entered the bull's enclosure to perform routine tasks such as feeding and cleaning. Bulls, despite their domesticated use in farming, retain powerful instincts tied to territory and dominance. While Simon likely believed the bull to be calm and manageable, the animal became suddenly agitated. Weighing over a ton, the bull charged Simon with tremendous force. Bulls are notorious for their strength and ability to deliver fatal blows, especially when they feel provoked or their territory is invaded. Witnesses or neighbors were not present at the time of the attack, but Simon's injuries suggested he had been trampled and struck multiple times. His body was discovered later in the day when family members came looking for him after he failed to return from the field. The bull, which had no prior history of aggression, was euthanized following the attack. Next, we turn to a story involving a group of animals acting on primal instincts in a way that would shock even experienced handlers. Starving dogs devour owner's body. In 2018, Philadelphia police responded to a disturbing call about a 67-year-old man found dead in his home. When authorities arrived, they were shocked to find his body being consumed by his 3 pet dogs, 2 Cane Corso Bull Mastiff mixes, and their mother. The scene was gruesome, with the dogs feasting on their deceased owner, who had been dead for several days. At first, there were concerns that the dogs might have attacked the man, but after a thorough investigation, it was determined that the man had died of natural causes. It's believed that the man passed away from an undisclosed health issue, and his dogs, left without food for days, became desperate. With no way to feed themselves, the animals turned to the only source of food available, their owner. The dogs were extremely malnourished, confirming that they had likely gone without food for several days before resorting to eating their owner's body. Despite their close bond with the man, their survival instincts took over once they were starving. It wasn't an attack driven by aggression, but a desperate act of survival. Animal control removed the dogs from the home, and they were eventually placed into the care of a local animal shelter. If you thought that was unsettling, the next story will make you rethink the idea of keeping wild animals as pets. Ferret attack leaves baby severely injured. A seemingly harmless pet turned into a nightmare for a family when their ferret launched a brutal attack on their 4-month-old baby. In 2013, while the parents slept, their young son was alone in his crib, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. The ferret, which had been kept as a family pet, suddenly attacked, biting off 7 of the baby's fingers in a shocking display of aggression. The attack occurred in the middle of the night, and the parents were only alerted when they heard their baby's cries. Rushing to his side, they discovered the ferret's savage actions. In desperation, the father quickly killed the ferret, stopping the attack, but the baby had already suffered devastating injuries. Emergency services arrived soon after, and the baby was rushed to the hospital where doctors fought to save his remaining fingers. The parents, who were later investigated for neglect, had failed to secure a proper license for their ferret, a requirement in many areas for exotic pets. The ferret had not been properly socialized, and there were signs it had been kept in poor conditions, which experts say may have contributed to its aggressive behavior. And last on our list is the most shocking of them all. Man mauled by pet deer. In East Texas, a man was tragically mauled to death by a deer he had been raising in a pen behind his house. The deer, a rutting stag, had become more aggressive as it reached mating season, a time when male deer are especially territorial and can react violently to perceived threats. One day, the man entered the pen as part of his usual routine, but this time, the deer felt threatened and attacked the man. Using its antlers and powerful hooves, the stag quickly overpowered the man. Despite the man's experience with animals, he didn't stand a chance against the deer's strength. By the time help arrived, the man had already died from his injuries. The deer was euthanized shortly afterward, and the incident raised serious concerns about the dangers of keeping wild animals as pets. Even though the man had raised the deer from a young age, it still had natural instincts that became unpredictable as it matured. This tragic event is a stark reminder that wild animals, no matter how tame they seem, can revert to their instincts in an instant. And that's a wrap for this video. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. For more crazy story, click on the screen right now.